Welcome to the Legal Broadcast Network. My guest is the host of the Family Law Channel, a beloved affiliate here of the Legal Broadcast Network, Judge Eugene Hyman, retired from Santa Clara, California. Today we're talking about Riverside County jurors. They've been warned to stay away from social media. That seems like a logical request, but sometimes, people forget, and jurors are not supposed to have contact with the outside world. Judge Hyman, welcome back.
Thank you.
So this seems pretty logical, but it's probably getting more common that a jury member can become careless and even sometimes inadvertently, be in contact with people on Facebook, for example.
Well, it isn't just Facebook; it's also Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things as a result of technology that I've seen over the 20 years that I was experienced with the criminal justice system. Things are getting more difficult. First of all, when a judge admonishes the jury that they're not to talk amongst themselves or with anyone else about anything going on with the case, and this is way before deliberations. This is from day one. And so from day one, some people are on Facebook. I've got jury duty. Ugh, it's a horrible experience. It's a boring case. The guy looks guilty, whatever. And the same thing on Twitter. You know? So there's that problem that in the very beginning, let alone the potential problems with deliberations. So judges for years have been admonishing jurors from during the jury selection process that they are not to not only discuss, but they're not to publish. They're not to mention anything. And the reason is because the way it starts out is innocent enough to say, hey, I'm on a jury, and this is the case that we're doing. And then the next thing you know, people are engaging, asking questions.
Right.
And next thing you know, you've crossed the line. And it isn't just actual prejudice or the actual expressing of opinions. It's the appearance of crossing the line. And in the law, the appearance is as good as the actual transgression. And it's even more than that. It's also experimentation. It's Google searches. It's everything. It's bringing in the outside world or the outside of the case world into the jury room that causes problems. And people are doing research even before jury deliberations, potentially. And now, unfortunately, it has developed into case law on these issues in terms of what will it take to actually cause a reversal. And if a judge finds out about inappropriate behavior prior to the case ending, then the judge is required to hold a hearing and is required to ask questions of the alleged offender, and then the judge is going to have to question every prospective juror to see whether or not this person talked to jurors about his or her results with respect to the Twitters, the Facebooks, or the research that the juror did outside of the court process, and to see whether or not that, in fact, has had an effect in terms of jury deliberations. Now, if this is pre-jury decision, then, and assuming that the juror has not poisoned the other jurors, then the solution might be just to discharge that particular juror and bring in an alternate. If you do that, of course, you have to admonish the jury that they must begin their deliberations from the very beginning. Because if you don't do it from the very beginning, then this juror who's now just joined in terms of decision-making hasn't had the benefit of all the discussions.
Right.
So this is huge. So then the question is, what can be done to a juror who violates the prohibition between doing research or Twittering or Facebooking or something else that's gone on? And the answer to that is up to the discretion of each judge. It can be something like an admonishment. It could be something such as being released. It can also amount to civil penalties and, depending upon the seriousness, even criminal consequences, up to a year in the county jail plus a fine.
Yeah, Judge Hyman, doesn't it seem likely that it's becoming increasingly more difficult to get a jury, that's unprejudiced? Because as we've seen here, the ability to get information instantaneously, people don't have to wait till the newspaper arrives anymore or watch TV. It comes in on your phone, and everything is covered by everybody, and
Right.
and so how does one get a jury that hasn't seen information? I mean, like for example, the Trayvon Martin jury. How do you how do you find somebody who could be a jury member?
Well, in the Martin situation, you may have to change venue
Hmm. But
because
still, I mean, that
yeah.
seems very difficult.
Well, it is very difficult, but there's also sort of a rebuttable presumption under the law that jurors will follow instructions.
Right.
Now, whether that's a naive old world view or not is something that will continue to evolve as scientists rather, do experimentation in terms of talking to jurors once cases are over
Hmm.
to find out how they listened to instructions and how they conducted themselves.
Mm.
But there's always historically been a problem in terms of jurors following instructions. I mean, I've talked to my parents many years ago when they were on jurors, and they've told me stories that were pretty upsetting at times in terms of what jurors wanted to talk about, and then
Mhm.
someone would say, well, wait a second, we were instructed not to consider that. Well, I understand, but it doesn't logically make sense not to consider that. Well, yes, it does, because the judge has said under the law we can't consider that.
Right.
So that's one of the advantages of having 12 people, is that hopefully you'll have a few amongst the 12 that will be able to corral the others back into form in terms of following the instructions. But judges, my experience is that judges cover, whether it be a civil case or a criminal case, cover these issues during the questioning process. Will you agree not to Twitter? Will you agree not to Facebook? Will you agree not to talk with family and friends? Will you agree not to do your own experimentation, your own research on Google or whatever? You get a commitment from people. And just as people walk in with prejudices in terms of, well, gee, he wouldn't have been arrested, he wouldn't have been charged unless he was guilty, and then you explain how the process works. And most people want to follow the rules and want to do the right thing because they recognize that either they or someone close to them could be facing a jury, and that's what they would want for them. So I think that during the questioning process, you explore these kinds of issues with people, and I think the vast majority of people want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if you do have a couple of recalcitrant individuals that don't want to do the right thing, the other jury members are just as likely to turn them in as anything else.
Right.
They say, hey, look, either you're going to comply or we're going to snitch you off.
Right.
And that happens on occasion as well. So is it a perfect system? No, it's far from a perfect system.
But it's what we got, Judge.
Well, it's more than that. I really think, for the most part, I think it works because based upon I probably, in terms of civil and criminal, did over 100 juries in the 20 years I was on the court. And sometimes I was amazed how long jurors were out because the evidence was, overwhelming in many cases. But people talk it through.
Right.
And the way it works dynamically is that the other people, everyone holds everyone accountable, and everyone knows they're going to have to report back. And this is not to say that there aren't cases where people disregard instructions, but for the most part, I think people do follow the law.
That's good to hear. And I suppose it gets more difficult as trial durations are longer.
Yes.
Long O.J.
Yes.
Simpson level.
Yes.
Jury things where people have
Yes.
to be without their
Yes.
their contact. It becomes almost impossible to keep people from,
Well,
because their family members are going, "How are you, honey? Are you okay?" And,
well,
and so,
that's a very good point, and I'm not sure that you're going to see sequestering anymore. I mean, technically, that could happen in any kind of a case. The judges has to give reasons and instructs, that people are going to be kept in hotel rooms or whatever. But I don't think you're going to see sequestering anymore, because the simple fact is that isn't going to shield people from the kinds of concerns that we've just been discussing. There's no way to eliminate the potential exposure. And I mean, by blacking out TVs and cutting out from newspapers and things of that nature, you're going to take away everyone's cell phone for months on end. I mean, it just doesn't work.
No.
Are you going to monitor their visits with their family members like they did with OJ and things like that?
I think we should just create a race of people. We cut them off from the media.
Professional jurors?
Yes, and we pay them. And we pay them to not look at TV, and I think I'd volunteer to that right now, actually. But when we pay them not to be, exposed to media, and then they can be jury members, their whole lives. We appreciate your time, and this is very interesting. It sounds like this kind of thing will be something more common, and that judges will have to say again. Let me remind you: please do not associate with anyone on social networks.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, every time that a jury breaks, whether it be for coffee or whether it be for lunch, judges admonish, do not form or express any opinions, keep an open mind, do not consult any reference works or individuals, and then I added, do not use computers or cell phones to Twitter, to Facebook, or to do any research. And you're just constantly drilling that in. And does it work 100% of the time? No, but it works enough, I believe.
All right, Judge Hyman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this is the Family Law Channel, an affiliate here of the Legal Broadcast Network.